Okay, this is hairdresser of Harare. I knew there was something not quite right about Dumi the very first time I ever laid eyes on him. The problem was I just couldn't tell what it was. Thank God for that. There was a time that I was reputed to be the best hairdresser in Harare, which meant the best in the whole country. The Mayan Doro was the fussiest customer to ever grace a salon, and she would not let any ordinary Kia Kia touch her hair. Having sampled all the salons in Harare, I rejected them all. She settled on ours. The fussiest customer was also the largest motor mouth and gossip monger. Once she was our client, we never needed to advertise again, as long as we kept her happy. That was my job, and why Miss Kumalo paid me the highest wage. Kumalo Hair and Beauty Treatment Salon was in the Avenues, a short walking distance from the city center. We did hair, but never any beauty treatments. In any case, I doubt any of us knew how to. There was a rusty metal sign, painted white with black lettering on the front gate that pointed to our establishment. The rust, accumulated over several rainy seasons, had eaten away so much of the sign that only Ku'ul, a drawing of a lady with a huge afro and an arrow, still showed. Our customers still didn't need it. The directions were simple. Go up from Harare Gardens, skip 2 roads, take a left, skip another road, and look for the blue house on your right, not the green one, and you're there. You'd have to be a nincompoop to miss it. The front section of the house, which once served as a lounge, was converted into an internet cafe with a dozen or so computers. You could hear the fans humming and the shriek of the dialer from the pavement across the road. Their prices weren't too bad either compared to the ones over at Eastgate or Shimax Mall. The rest of the main house was used by all the Kamala family, all 13 of them. Our salon was at the back in what used to be the boys' kaya servants' quarters. From across the yard, the fragrant aroma of relaxers, dyes, shampoos, and a dozen other chemicals hit you. The smell merged with the dust from the driveway and left something in your nostrils that you couldn't shake off until the next time you caught a cold. The building had been crudely extended. A wall had been knocked down to the left of the concrete, down to the left, and the concrete blocks hastily laid to add another 7 meters. Such architectural genius had left us with a hybrid building, the likes of which you could only find if you looked hard. The right of the oops, The right of the building was constructed of proper burnt bricks, professionally built in every respect. You could see the dividing line where the cheap concrete blocks had been used. Aesthetics aside, we were all grateful for the accommodation, though it rattled a little during heavy storms. Each morning I was greeted by Agnes with "Cease even by, you're late again. Customers are waiting." Mrs. Kumalo's eldest daughter held the keys and opened shop. I would make a sound like with my lips and walked in without greeting the cow. I hated her, and she hated me twice as much, and so long as Mummy wasn't in, there was no need to pretend otherwise. Everyone knew I was the goose that laid the golden eggs. If I left, half the customers would follow me. In any case, letting them wait made them realize how lucky they were to be served at all, so I was actually doing the business a favor. There are 3 other hairdressers, Memory, Patricia, and Yolanda, plus Charlie Boy, our barber, who always came in smelling of chibuku. The salon was my personal fiefdom, and I was queen bee. I would throw my handbag on the floor underneath the cashier's desk and boil myself a cup of tea. "There's a new style I want you to do for me." How often I heard these words, followed by a folded picture torn from some glossy American magazine. I can do that easily. It's just the style for you. I always indulge them with a white lie. There's only one secret to being a successful hairdresser, and I've never withheld it from anyone. Your client should leave the salon feeling like a white woman. Not colored, not Indian, not Chinese. I've told this to everyone who's ever asked me. What they all want to know is, how do you make someone feel white, like a white woman? Sigh, yawn, scratch. The answer is simple. Whiteness is a state of mind. Mrs. Kumalo understands this, and that's why she would never fire me. The other girls don't understand it, and that's why Patricia was fired. The stupid girl got pregnant less than 6 months into the job, so of course, Mrs. K had no choice. Hairdressers are there to sell an image, and that image is not pushing a football in your belly. Suddenly we had a vacancy. Little did I know this small twist of fate would cost me my crown. Chapter 2. The grapevine is an amazing thing. Patricia had only been sacked for 2 days, but the phone was already ringing off the hook. Each caller had somehow heard that we had a vacancy, and they were ready to start right away. I must have answered a dozen calls before I refused to take another one. Agnes sat in the corner reading a magazine. She only ever worked when her mother was in. I was doing a perm for a fat customer when the phone rang again. You're doing nothing. Can you answer the phone? I shouted. If she'd been my daughter, I would have slapped her. She got up slowly and went to the desk. Hello, she said like a person on a toilet, but the caller had already hung up. Sit by the phone and write all their names and details into that exercise book. This girl was so lazy you had to spell everything out. Don't you tell me what to do. You're just a worker. One day you're going to get fired too, and I'll be answering calls for your job. Stupid girl. If I go to your mother, if I go, your mother will be out of business, is what I wanted to say. But we had customers. The ugly one wriggled uncomfortably. My ugly one wriggled uncomfortably. I could tell she was not feeling white yet, but I was so angry I couldn't have cared less. Wearing a green Nigerian bobo, which hugged the contours of her amply fed body, Mrs. Kumalo came in later that day, kicking the dust off her feet. The government had given her a few hectares on a farm 30 kilometers down the Mazoe Road, so she spent a good amount of her time there. It was where Mr. Kumalo now lived permanently, since they'd also been given the farm manager's house. Agnes, give me a glass of water. Her high-pitched voice echoed around the room. Whenever she spoke, it was so loudly that I assumed she thought we were all deaf. She drank the water in one gulp and placed the glass on the desk. Behind her puff eyelids, her tiny eyes surveyed the salon and seemed disappointed that there weren't more customers in the queue. Makadini Hanyu, Mrs. Kumalo, my fat customer said. Matilda, I heard you'd left us for Easy Touch Salon. Mrs. K never forgot any of her customers' names, a trait that I wish I shared. They're cheaper, but they don't know what they're doing, Fat Matilda answered. Everyone who goes there comes back. I hear horror stories about people's hair snapping off. It was an exaggeration, but destroying a competitor's reputation was all part of the game. Easy Touch in return spread a rumor that we were wenches who wanted to steal our customers' husbands. It must have scared some women off because we were all beautiful except for Agnes, who shared her mother's toadyish shape. Neither mother nor daughter had necks. Shame. It was left to me to tell Mrs. Kumalo about the calls we've been getting for the vacancy. This was something else I had admired about her. Had it been another person, they would have looked for a relative to fill the position, but not Mrs. Kumalo. She wanted the best people working for her. I put Fatty in the dryer in the center of the room for her perm to set before I could take the rollers out. One wall of the salon had wash basins, the other chairs, and a third side was reserved for Charlie Boy and his male customers. The dryers were placed in the center because we didn't have anywhere else to put them. The fourth wall had shelves carrying our stocks and a large mirror. Are any of these girls who phoned professionals? I should have used cotton wool to plug my ears. I know two of them personally. Which ones? I hesitated. I didn't want to recommend someone who turned out to be useless, but if I'd known what was to come, I would have pushed for any one of them, useless or not. A man walked up the drive. The sound of his feet crunched in the pebbles. He hesitantly read the sign to see if he was at the right place. Is this Mrs. Kumalo's hair salon? Couldn't you read the sign? Agnes called out. We all laughed like a pack of hyenas. Charlie Boy came to the front, certain he had a customer. I don't know why he was kept on. Very few men came in for a haircut or shave, so the barbershop was hardly profitable. Come in, Sonny, I'll sort that hair out of yours in no time, Charlie Boy quipped. The man had an afro. I would have been sad to see it shaved off. Stylish and well-kempt, it glistened in the sun, a sure sign that he was using oils. He was about 22, with a well-proportioned, boyish physique, pleasing to the eye. The black trousers and short-sleeved white shirt made him look like a junior clerk in the civil service. I've come to see Mrs. Kumalo. His voice was soft yet clear. What do you want? She asked. He took a timid step and stopped in the doorway to look around the salon and its many American hairstyle posters that we pinned on the walls. His searching eyes studied everything from our stocks to our seats. I took Fatty Matilda out from under the dryer and led her to the cash desk. The young man could not take his eyes off her. Men want their women big and round, mutu fetefe. Her voluptuous buttocks bounced around as if to mock me. I said, "What do you want?" Mrs. Kumalo snapped him out of his trance. I heard that you had a vacancy. So maybe you want something for your sister or cousin, maybe? Tell me her name and her qualifications. I need the job myself. Agnes let out a squeak and I began to laugh. Young man, do you think I'm looking for a garden boy? I want a hairdresser. Mrs. Kumalo laughed. She sounded like a pig, much like her daughter. The young man turned as if to go. I can do the job, Mrs. Kumalo, if you give me a chance. Don't be stupid. We mustn't waste each other's time. Go away. If you weren't putting money into her till, Mrs. K had no reason to be nice to you. These were difficult times and jobs were scarce, but I'd never thought that men would try to get a woman's job. A male hairdresser, who would have heard of such a thing? But instead of leaving, the young man stepped into the shop towards Matilda, who was counting out her money. She grasped her handbag tightly between her breasts. The man flicked her hair with his hand. Hey, what do you think you're doing? Charlie Boy shouted. Even an unlikely male figure can be some protection against Ferrari's bold thieves. Trust me, sister, this is your chance to help me, the man said, his voice as soft as running water. Your hair was set beautifully, but the style she's given you is not for you. He picked up a fine-tooth comb from the table and ran it through her hair. You have a round face, so instead of these curls, we need to layer it so that it flows with the smooth contours of your face. He worked briskly with his comb, then took out a pair of scissors to trim the ends. My heart was pounding with rage. It had taken me an hour and a half to do that style, and he dared say that I'd got it wrong. The customer was always king. I'd done the style she asked for. Hey, you, Charlie Boy moved forward. No, please let him finish, Mrs. Kumalo, Matilda said. Our boss was silent as she watched him with a quiet fascination. If I hadn't known her better, I would have said she had seemed amused. The stranger worked quickly like an artist working on a living sculpture. His long, slender fingers primed the hair, and everyone's eyes were focused on him. A few customers stepped out from under their dryers to watch him work. 5 minutes later, he was finished. He put his hands on Matilda's shoulders and made her look in the mirror. She blinked. He picked up a mirror so that she could see the back of her head as well. What do you think? He asked. Sweet Jesus, I look like Naomi Campbell. Matilda's body was trembling with excitement. You see what I meant about the layers. This is wonderful. Please give me your phone number. That is when Mrs. Kumalo stepped in. She'd seen enough. She gently took Matilda by the hand and ushered her to the door. Don't worry, you'll find him here next time you come. The young man said his name was Dumisani. Mrs. Kumalo didn't care. She took his details and told him that he was to start work the following Monday.